You know that moment when someone breaks your heart and you think your world is ending? I am Lillian, and for 3 years, I thought I had found my forever person in Daniel. I was that girl who loved with everything I had, who supported his dreams like they were my own. But Daniel got a little too comfortable thinking he was too good for me, that he deserved better than what we had built together. Little did he know, the universe was about to teach him a lesson he would never forget. Before I tell you exactly how karma served him, the humiliation he deserved, let me know in the comments where you are watching from. Hit that like button if you have ever had your heart broken by someone who thought they were better than you, and subscribe, because trust me, you are going to want to hear how this story ends. Now let me take you back to where it all started. Daniel and I met at a company retreat for the tech startup where we both worked. It was one of those picture-perfect moments you see in movies. He was this charming, confident guy who worked in sales, and I was in marketing. When he walked over to my table during the welcome dinner, I felt like the luckiest woman in the room. He had this way of making you feel like you were the only person who mattered when he looked at you. Those first 6 months were everything I thought love should be. Daniel would surprise me with flowers on random Tuesdays, plan romantic weekend getaways to the mountains, and we would stay up until 3 in the morning talking about our future together. He had these big dreams about climbing the corporate ladder, and I was his biggest cheerleader. I would proofread his presentations until they were perfect, attend networking events as his plus one, even when I would rather be home in my pajamas, and listen to him rehearse his pitches over and over again. I thought I was being the supportive girlfriend every man dreams of having. When he stressed about quarterly reviews, I would make his favorite dinner and give him pep talks. When he doubted himself before big meetings, I reminded him how brilliant and capable he was. Looking back now, I realize I was pouring all of myself into building him up while he was slowly starting to tear me down. The change started so subtly that I almost missed it. Around month 15 of our relationship, Daniel got promoted to senior sales director. Suddenly, he was making more money than he ever had working with high-profile clients and attending executive meetings. That should have been a celebration for both of us, right? Instead, it became the beginning of the end. His text messages became shorter and less frequent. Where he used to send me good morning texts with heart emojis, now I was lucky if I got a quick busy day message by noon. The compliments that used to flow so freely began to dry up. When I would get dressed up for our dates, instead of telling me I looked beautiful, he would suggest I try a different lipstick color or ask if I had anything more professional looking to wear. But it was not just what he stopped saying that hurt. It was what he started saying that really cut deep. During dinner one night, I was telling him about a successful campaign my marketing team had just launched, and he interrupted me mid-sentence. "You would not understand," he said, cutting his steak with more force than necessary. "It is business-level stuff. What I deal with is more complex than running social media ads." I felt like he had slapped me across the face. Social media ads. I had a degree in marketing and 3 years of experience creating comprehensive brand strategies. But suddenly, because he was making more money, my entire career became something small and insignificant in his eyes. The changes showed up on social media too. Daniel started posting photos from expensive restaurants and exclusive networking events, but I was nowhere to be found in any of them. Instead, his Instagram stories were filled with pictures of him laughing with colleagues, attending conferences I had never heard of, and dining at places he had never taken me. When I asked him about it, he would brush it off with excuses about work events being too boring for me or not really my scene. Even worse were the times when I was included, but made to feel like an afterthought. At parties with his friends, he would introduce me as just my girlfriend, instead of using my name, let alone mentioning anything about my accomplishments or personality. It was like I had become an accessory to his success rather than a partner in his life. The red flags kept getting bigger and more obvious. Daniel started making comments about my job that felt like tiny daggers to my self-esteem. "Marketing is pretty basic," he would say casually while we watched television. Sales is where the real challenge is. You have to actually convince people to spend money, not just make pretty pictures and catchy slogans. He began comparing me to other women in ways that made my skin crawl. Maybe you should dress more professionally like Sarah from accounting, he suggested one morning as I was getting ready for work. She always looks so put together and sophisticated. Or he would mention how impressed he was with Madison, the new VP of Operations, who had just started at our company. She has an MBA from Stanford, he would say with this dreamy look in his eyes. It is so refreshing to talk to someone who really gets business strategy. Our intimate moments became fewer and further between. When I would try to be affectionate, Daniel always seemed to have an excuse. He was too tired from his important meetings, too stressed about his big deals, or too busy planning for the next day. Phone calls that used to last for hours became 10-minute check-ins where he sounded distracted and eager to hang up. My gut kept telling me something was wrong, but I could not put my finger on exactly what it was. I found myself walking on eggshells, trying not to say anything that would remind him of how basic my life was compared to his newly elevated status. I started questioning everything about myself. Was I really not ambitious enough? Was my career actually meaningless? Had I been fooling myself into thinking I was worthy of someone like Daniel? Everything came crashing down on a Thursday evening in October. Daniel had been working late again, or so I thought. I was at his apartment making dinner, planning to surprise him with his favorite pasta dish when he got home. His phone was charging on the kitchen counter when it lit up with a text notification. I was not the type of girlfriend to snoop through phones, but when I saw the name Madison flash across the screen, something in my stomach twisted. Call it women's intuition, call it paranoia, but I could not ignore the feeling that this message was going to change everything. The text was not even trying to be subtle. Cannot wait to see you tomorrow night. This hotel has the most amazing penthouse suite. It will be perfect for celebrating your decision to finally upgrade your life situation. My hands were shaking as I scrolled up to read more of their conversation. 2 months' worth of messages that painted a picture I was not prepared to see. Madison was not just his colleague. She was his escape plan, his ticket to what he considered a better life. They had been meeting for dinner, sharing inside jokes about company executives, and planning a future together that did not include me. But the worst part was how they talked about me. Daniel had written, "She is sweet but not ambitious enough for where I am heading. Madison, you understand business at my level in a way Lillian never could." And Madison had responded, "You deserve someone who matches your success, honey. Life is too short to settle for comfortable when you could have extraordinary." When Daniel walked through the door an hour later, I was sitting on his couch with his phone in my hands and tears streaming down my face. He took one look at me and did not even try to deny what was happening. Instead, he had the audacity to look relieved. "I am glad you found out this way," he said, loosening his tie like this was just another business transaction he needed to close. "I have been trying to figure out how to have this conversation with you for weeks." I could barely find my voice. "So this is real, you and Madison." He sat down across from me, not even close enough to touch, and folded his hands like he was delivering a presentation. "Lillian, I need someone who matches my ambition. You are comfortable with mediocrity, and I have realized that I am not. Madison understands business at my level. We have intellectual conversations about strategy, growth, market positioning. We challenge each other." Each word felt like a physical blow. 3 years of my life, 3 years of supporting his dreams and celebrating his successes, and I was being dismissed as someone who was comfortable with mediocrity. "This is not personal," he continued as if that made it hurt less. "It is just that I have evolved, and we want different things now. I am moving in a direction that requires a different kind of partner." "A different kind of partner," I repeated, my voice cracking. "Daniel, I have supported every single one of your goals. I have been there for every late night when you were stressed, every celebration when you succeeded, every moment when you doubted yourself. He looked at me with something that might have been pity. And I appreciate that, I really do. But Madison and I, we are building something together. We are both ambitious, both driven, both focused on reaching the top. You will find someone more suitable for your lifestyle, someone who is content with a simple, quiet life. The casual cruelty of his words took my breath away. In his mind, he was doing me a favor by setting me free to find someone more suitable for my apparently pathetic existence. Within days of our breakup, Daniel was publicly flaunting his new relationship. His LinkedIn profile suddenly featured photos from high-end networking events with Madison by his side, both of them looking like they had stepped out of a business magazine. His Instagram stories became a highlight reel of their perfect life together. Dinners at restaurants I could never afford, weekend trips to wine country, and professional photos of them at charity galas. The worst part was watching our mutual friends and coworkers react. At company happy hours, I would overhear conversations about how Daniel had really upgraded and how Madison was so accomplished and sophisticated. People who had known us as a couple for years suddenly started treating me like I had been holding Daniel back from his true potential. I felt invisible, like I had never mattered at all. Every success I had achieved, every moment of happiness we had shared, every dream we had talked about building together, had been erased and replaced with this narrative that he had simply outgrown me. But karma, as it turns out, has a sense of timing that would make a Swiss watchmaker jealous. Just 3 weeks after Daniel had publicly declared his upgrade to a better life, the universe decided to remind him why arrogance and greed are such dangerous companions. It started with a company-wide email that made everyone's blood run cold. The subject line read, "Mandatory meeting regarding financial irregularities investigation." Madison, the brilliant Stanford MBA who was supposed to be Daniel's intellectual equal, had been running an embezzlement scheme that would have made Bernie Madoff proud. For months, she had been creating fake vendor contracts and funneling company funds into offshore accounts. But here is where Daniel's situation went from bad to career-ending. She had been using his access codes and forging his signatures on approval documents. As a senior sales director, Daniel had the authority to approve certain expenditures, and Madison had been systematically exploiting that access. The FBI showed up at our office on a Tuesday morning. I watched from my desk as they escorted Daniel out in handcuffs, while Madison was nowhere to be found. She had disappeared the night before, leaving behind nothing but empty bank accounts and a trail of forged documents with Daniel's name all over them. Within hours, the local news had picked up the story. "Local tech executive under investigation for embezzlement scheme," read the headline, accompanied by Daniel's LinkedIn headshot. The same photo, he had been so proud of, the one where he looked like the successful businessman he thought he had become, was now broadcast across every news channel in the city. But the public humiliation was just the beginning. The company fired Daniel, immediately citing their zero-tolerance policy for employees associated with criminal activity. The tech industry in our city was small and tightly connected, and word of Daniel's involvement spread faster than wildfire. No respectable company would touch him with a 10-foot pole. His savings account, which he had been so proud of building up, was completely drained. Madison had convinced him to invest in several business ventures that turned out to be elaborate money laundering operations. Every dollar he thought he was investing in their future together had actually been funding her escape plan. The legal bills started piling up immediately. Criminal defense lawyers do not work for free, and Daniel was facing federal charges that could put him in prison for 20 years. He had to sell his car, break his apartment lease, and move back in with his parents at age 30. His social media presence, which had been such a carefully curated showcase of his successful life, became a ghost town overnight. The LinkedIn connections, who had been congratulating him on his career advancement, suddenly went silent. The networking events he had been so proud to attend were no longer returning his calls. The friends who had praised his upgrade from me were suddenly too busy to answer his texts. The same people who had made me feel invisible at parties were now pretending they had never known Daniel well enough to vouch for his character. And then came the phone calls to me. Desperate, broken pleading calls at 2 in the morning where Daniel would cry into the phone about how he had made the biggest mistake of his life. "I see clearly now what I lost," he would sob. "Madison was a mistake. You were real, authentic, loyal. I was an idiot to think I could do better than someone who actually loved me." He promised he would do anything to earn me back. He would go to therapy, change careers, move wherever I wanted to go. "I will spend the rest of my life making this up to you," he swore. "I know I do not deserve another chance, but I am begging you to give me one anyway." But here is the thing about trust. Once it is broken in the way Daniel broke ours, it cannot be pieced back together with apologies and promises. I listened to his calls with a mixture of sadness and relief. Sadness for the man I had once loved, who had destroyed his life chasing after something that was never real. Relief that I had been freed from a relationship with someone who saw me as less than I was worth. The months that followed Daniel's downfall were a journey of healing that I never expected to take. At first, I felt guilty for the small part of me that felt satisfied watching karma deliver such swift justice. I had loved this man for 3 years, and seeing him lose everything did not bring me the joy I thought it might. But slowly I began to understand that karma had not just punished Daniel. It had protected me. If he had not left me for Madison, I might have spent years trying to prove my worth to someone who would never see it. I might have dimmed my own light trying to fit into his narrow definition of success and ambition. My career, which Daniel had dismissed as basic and unambitious, began to flourish in ways I had never imagined. Without spending all my emotional energy trying to build up someone who was tearing me down, I had room to focus on my own growth. 6 months after our breakup, I was promoted to creative director, leading campaigns for national brands and managing a team of talented marketers. I found new friendships with people who appreciated my values and celebrated my successes without making me feel like I needed to apologize for them. These were people who understood that ambition comes in many forms and that success is not just about money and status symbols. Most importantly, I discovered a strength in myself that I had forgotten existed. For so long, I had been defining my worth through Daniel's eyes, letting his opinion of me shape how I saw myself. Being forced to stand on my own reminded me that I was complete all by myself, that I did not need anyone else's validation to know my value. When Daniel continued to reach out, I responded with kindness but firm boundaries. I forgave him not because he deserved it, but because carrying anger was only hurting me. "I forgive you for my own peace," I told him during our last conversation, "but I cannot forget how you saw me as less than I was. That is not something I can move past." I wished him well in rebuilding his life, but I made it clear that rebuilding would not include me. Some bridges once burned cannot be rebuilt no matter how sorry the person who lit the match might be. The experience taught me that sometimes the universe removes the wrong people from our lives to make space for the right ones. Daniel's betrayal, as much as it hurt at the time, was actually a gift. It showed me that I deserved better than someone who would discard 3 years of love the moment he thought he found something more impressive. I learned that true ambition is not about climbing over other people to reach the top. It is about building something meaningful, whether that is a career, a relationship, or a life that reflects your values. Success is not about having the most expensive car or dining at the most exclusive restaurants. It is about being proud of the person you see in the mirror every morning. Madison may have had an MBA from Stanford, but she lacked the most important qualification for being Daniel's partner: basic human decency. All the education and sophistication in the world cannot make up for a character that is fundamentally flawed. Daniel thought he was upgrading, but he was actually trading something real and valuable for something that was beautifully packaged, but completely hollow inside. As I write this, Daniel is still fighting federal charges and working at his father's auto repair shop to pay his legal bills. Madison was eventually caught in Monaco, but not before she had stolen close to $2 million from various victims. She will be spending the next 15 years in federal prison. Meanwhile, I am planning a vacation to Europe with the money I have saved from my promotion. I am dating again, but this time I know what red flags to watch for. Most importantly, I know that I will never again allow someone to make me feel like I need to shrink myself to fit into their vision of what I should be. The best revenge I have learned is not watching someone else suffer. It is living so well that you forget why you wanted revenge in the first place. It is building a life so full of genuine happiness that you look back on the pain they caused and feel grateful it led you somewhere better. So here is my message to anyone who has ever been told they were not enough. Believe them, and then prove them wrong by being more than they could ever imagine. Do not waste your time trying to convince someone of your worth. The right person will see it immediately, and the wrong person will never see it no matter how much you change yourself. Your value is not determined by who chooses to stay or leave your life. It is determined by how you treat yourself and others, by the dreams you chase, and by the love you give to the world. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is having someone walk away who never deserved you in the first place. Have you ever had someone leave your life thinking they were upgrading only to watch karma teach them otherwise? Share your story in the comments below, because I know I am not the only one who has experienced this kind of poetic justice. If this story resonated with you, smash that like button to let me know, and please subscribe, because I have so many more stories about love betrayal and the beautiful way the universe balances the scales. Share this video with anyone who needs to be reminded of their worth, and remember that sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is being set free by someone who was never worthy of you anyway. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it reminds you that your worth is not determined by someone else's inability to see it. Until next time, keep loving yourselves and trusting that everything happens exactly as it should.